Hello, my name is Susan Manning, and after 20 plus years of working in the field of HR and talent development, I set up my own HR and leadership company in 2019 with the sole aim of helping people find the job that they love. I'm delighted today to be partnering with Cork County Library and Work Matters to bring you this workshop on 7 strategy tips to help you get back into the workforce after a career break. Work Matters is a wonderful resource that you can find more information about on the Cork County website that can help you with a career change, upskilling, and setting up your own company. Today, there are many reasons as to why someone will take a career break, and it can be for any length of time. Industry research would tell me that the average length of a career break is 2 years, although I was working with a lady last year who had been on a career break for 5 years. It really doesn't matter how long or why the reasons are for a career break. What matters is that you follow these strategy tips to help you get back into the workforce if you decide that's what you want to do now. And the first thing that I would suggest that you do is understand your why. Why now? It's really important that you're able to articulate the reasons as to why now is the right time for you to get back into the workforce, because it's going to be a journey. It's going to take time to find the right job. And along that way, you're going to receive setbacks and you're going to receive disappointments. So you're going to need to dig deep to find that resilience and that motivation to keep going. And the way you do that is understanding your why. A very simple tool that I like to use to figure out my why when I have a question to answer is known as the 5 whys. More commonly used in organizations to solve problems and find a solution. I often use it to help me figure out what my answer to a question is. My suggestion is that you get out a blank piece of paper and you write down, why do I want to make the change now? And you build on that answer and you keep asking yourself that why until you get to no more answers. You've had an opportunity to listen to your subconsciousness, and there is nothing else as to the reasoning as to why now is the right change. Think of it like an onion. You want to keep peeling back the onion until you get to the core, and then write down and articulate the reason the reason why now is the right time. And that will give you that motivation when you receive the setbacks and you're thinking, this is too hard to do. And I strongly believe that never is there a more perfect time to return back to the workplace than there is now. Yes, we're looking at the workplace of post-COVID and what does that look like? But LinkedIn would tell me that there are 4 more remote working jobs than there was in 2019. So that means that maybe organizations and jobs that you would have looked at before, but you would not be able to commit to going into the workplace 5 days a week, are now more open to you. We know that the phenomenon of the 4-day working week is taking strength. There is more people interested in that. So flexible working, remote working, 4-day working weeks are now becoming more of the norm than before. Absolutely, there is an economy of uncertainty, but what that is creating is flexible working contracts. I myself joined a company back in 2004, and I was there for the next 12 years, and it was one of my favorite jobs and companies. And I joined that company on an agency temporary contract. If you're open to temporary contracts, fixed term contracts, part-time work, now is the opportunity to grab them and take them, prove yourself in the organization. And when they get settled and they're more open to issuing permanent contracts, you will be in the right place. It is no secret that there is a shortage of skills in the workplace. It is no shortage that Ireland is suffering from technical skill shortage. But what is less known is that a lot of the apprenticeships, such as beauty, hairdressing, as well as plumbing, painting, and building, there's all shortage of skills. So if you have that skill set, that you were trained in before, now is the time to think about going back into that industry. Likewise, apprenticeships is booming in Ireland. The government and companies are more focused on providing apprenticeships, and there are currently 175,000 people doing apprenticeships in Ireland in 2020. Likewise, the accountancy, Ireland Accountancy, have identified that they are going to be doing more apprenticeships in 2021 than they did in 2020. And again, the government is really committed to getting people back into the workplace and have announced their job stimulus program of 2020. So if you don't go back into the workplace now, when will be the right time? We next now need to look at what are the stories we tell ourselves, and we constantly tell ourselves stories. And often these stories are not fact, but we have built them up to be in our head to be the truth. So again, I would suggest that you take out a blank piece of paper and you write down your story. And one of the stories that we often tell ourselves is that we're too old. We're too old to do this. We're too old to get back in the workplace. And there is no truth in that. My own mother was 60 when she went back into the workplace after a huge 20 years being at home. She got a job with the Brothers of Charity and she was very happy, and she did that for the next 14 years. She only retired last year due to the COVID and the pandemic that we found ourselves in. So think about that. What is the truth in the story that you're telling yourself? Next, I'm going to ask you to stop and review everything. Again, take out a blank piece of paper, or maybe at this stage you have treated yourself to a nice notebook. I honestly believe that a nice paper notebook can help you motivate to be thinking about all of this. But stop and review what are your strengths, what are your skills, and don't just think about what you've been doing now, but think about what have you learned over the last time that you've been out in your career break. Think about what are the skills that you learned when you were in school and in those first few jobs that you did when you left school. I don't believe that we spend enough time thinking about our values. So think about what is it that is important to you. And sometimes we articulate the values that we think we should be saying. For example, doing a good job. But maybe your value is that you want to do something for yourself. Maybe your value is that it's now an opportunity for you to grow and for you to develop. So think about what are your values so that you can articulate the values of yourself and see do they match the organization that you're joining. Again, with a blank piece of paper or in this lovely new notebook that you're going to buy yourself, think about what type of job do you want. If you had an opportunity to describe your ideal job, what does that look like? How would you know it when you saw it? Think about what are your non-negotiables? What are you not willing to do? And that's okay. I strongly believe that we need to articulate them now. They may change as you go through the process and you have conversations and you go through interviews. So for example, one of the most common non-negotiables is that someone's not willing to do a commute anymore. They don't want to be in a car for an hour each way going to a job. And that may be okay. But if you find your ideal job and it is over an hour away and you go through the interview process and you get more and more excited about the job and about the organization, but they tell you that they also now do remote working and you only need to travel into the office 2 days a week, well, that non-negotiable now becomes something that you're more willing to do. So as much as I believe that your non-negotiables, you need to articulate them now at the start of your job search, they also need to be flexible, and maybe they need to be move into negotiables as you go through your job search. And then again, articulate what is your why. Really understand that, because that will keep your motivation going as you're going through this process. This will be difficult, right? It will not be an easy part of the process. So my second tip is that you need to find your tribe. And your tribe is broken into 3 people. Three different people. The first is the person who is your cheerleader, who you trust completely, who will tell you the hard truth, but will pick you up when you need it. This person is somebody who completely and utterly and totally believes in you and knows that you can find the right job for you after your career break. The second person that I want you to identify is someone that you really respect, someone that is maybe working in the field that you're working in the area that you're working in, that can give you advice and support and can help you along your journey. And the third person is the person who can help introduce you to other people. Maybe they are working in the organization that you want to get involved in. Maybe they're working in the industry that you're involved in. Or maybe they are just somebody who you know knows lots of people and can help introduce you to them. But think about and articulate and write down, again, articulate in your notebook, who's going to be in your tribe. Maybe at the moment you don't know that person who can be your mentor, and maybe the person who you identify to be your connector can help introduce you to your mentor, but identify who will fall into each of these three categories. It's equally as important that you identify who your disruptors are. And unfortunately, your disruptors might be your closest friend. They may be your closest partner. They may be your sister. They may be your mother. But certainly identify those who can tell you that this is not a good idea, that this will be too disruptive, that now is not the right time to go back into the workplace. Identify them. When I was leaving my corporate job after 20 years, there was somebody very close to me who I identified as my disruptor, who honestly did not think that this was a good idea. And I eventually had to say to them, I appreciate that you don't think that this is a good idea, but from now on, I just want your support and your love. I don't need your advice. And from that day on, that's all they gave me, was their love. And when I had my wobblies, as is expected, they just told me that I could do this. So think about who is your tribe, who you need in your corner that can help you on this journey. The next tip that you need to do is articulate your story. Who are you? Know and understand the value of what you've been doing. Know what you've been learned and what you have delivered to your family, to your community, to your neighbors, to the school. Who have you been helping and supporting? And know that value of that. It hasn't just been a tick box exercise as something that you have just done. Understand what that value is in the impact that you have made. When you meet somebody and they say to you, what is it that you've been doing? Know what you want to say, trying to think about it in the moment, trying to think about what you want to say when someone asks you. It's too late. You need to articulate it now. So again, in your notebook or on a blank piece of paper, write out your elevator pitch. Write out what it is that you're going to be saying in your networking when you're speaking to people. Understand your strengths. What are you good at? And don't think about just your strengths in the last 5 years for as long as you've been doing your career break. Think about your strengths that you had at the start of your career. Think about what you are bringing, who you naturally are, and what are you known for? Often people say to me that they are the person who has to organize the family gatherings. They organize what the family are going to do. So that strength is known as organizational skills. That strength is known as bringing people together. So think about that really clearly, articulate it, and know what your strengths are that you can bring to a company. Start to think about your achievements and start to share that and start to again articulate what your achievement is with people so that they know what you've achieved. And then finally, start to tell people what your career goals are. What is it that your ideal job is? What is it you want? And prepare your elevator pitch. If you haven't heard of an elevator pitch, it is a US term, and basically it is given to what you say to someone when you get into the first lift first floor of a lift and what you say to them by the time you get to the top of the building. I like to think about it as it is 150 words and it is just 45 seconds, and it incorporates what your circumstances are, what your history is, what you've achieved, what your education is, and what you want to deliver. And if you start to work that out, and honestly, I promise you that you will be surprised at how much you can say in 150 words, and that is 45 seconds. And then once you have that, you need to start to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Because when you're coming out of your local shop and you have the bread in one hand and the butter and the milk in the other hand, and the family at home is screaming for their lunch, and you meet the ideal person who can introduce you to someone in an organization, or they are working in that organization that you want to get into, knowing your elevator pitch and knowing what you want to say to grab their attention is vital, because trying to think about it in the moment when you're rushing and they're rushing is not the time. So practice, practice, practice your elevator pitch. I'm a passionate believer in lifetime learning. I believe that we should always be trying to develop ourselves and learning new things. But I appreciate that when we step out of the work environment, sometimes we don't have that mindset to be doing any thinking into what am I learning. So think about, what do you need to learn to get back into the workplace? And never has there been more of an opportunity to do that. I was working with a financial director last year. I think actually it was the year before, and she was going back into the workplace after a couple of years, and she committed to reading the Business Times, the business pages every single day for 6 months, because she wanted to bridge that gap of knowledge that she had between the start of her career break and the end of her career break. And she felt that that's what she needed to do that. That might be a bit extreme to you, but start thinking about how you can be more aware of what's going on in the industry, in the world. If there's a skill set that you want to learn, go back to the library and talk to them about that. Go Google it. There are free courses. There are courses that are very reasonable, very cheap. There is LinkedIn Learning. There is so much learning available to us now that we can do at our own time, that we can do remotely. The days of having to go into a classroom 2 nights a week for long periods of time are gone. It's all through flexible learning and doing it online. So think about, what are the skills that you need to learn, and what are the interests that you want to learn, and start learning. I really believe that by learning helps develop our mindset into a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is what will help us get back into the workplace. My next tip is start to prepare all of the basic logistics that you need for your job hunting skills. So is your CV up to date? CVs change, they come in and out of fashion as time goes on. So think about, what is it that you need to put into your CV? Is it modern? Does it sell yourself? Would it pass through the robot when you apply for a job? If this is filling you with dread and you're thinking about, I don't have a CV, Google it, figure it out online, follow the YouTube videos on how to write a modern CV, or again, go back to your library and ask them for their support. Go back to your tribe, ask them, can you review my CV? How does the CV sound to you? Think about that. Start to think about your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's okay. But I would strongly urge you to put up a profile. And when you have your CV, it's very easy to do a LinkedIn profile. Some research would tell us that in 5 years' time, our CVs will be redundant and we will be all just using LinkedIn. So do think about putting up your profile on LinkedIn. Think about your social media. Over the last couple of years, we have all been posting more and more on social media than we ever did before. But again, often when we apply for a job, the first thing the recruiter will do is is a social media search. So if there are things up there on your social media that you don't like, that doesn't sell you, that doesn't help you develop the brand of who you need to be to get your next job, think about deleting those pages. Think about deleting those posts that you've made. I strongly recommend that you identify the top 10 companies in your industry, in your area, in your location that you would like to work with, that you've heard about, that you're interested in. And if you're struggling to think of what are the top 10 companies, Google the Great Places to Work survey and understand what companies are coming up as a great places to work in Ireland. Once you have that, identify who do you know in those companies, who can introduce you to people in those companies. 80% of jobs are got through networking. So networking through your tribe is so important, but I don't want you to go and do it in a willy-nilly approach. Become streamlined. Think about what are the top 10 companies you would like to work for in your location, in your industry, and start to figure out who do you know in those companies that can help you. Become very much aware of what companies are hiring. I know myself when I left my organization after 12 years and then I went to another company for another couple of years, I didn't know what companies in Ireland were hiring. I certainly not in my location. But once you start becoming more aware of that, when you're on the job search pages and when you're looking for a job, look at the different companies that are hiring. They may not be hiring in your area. They may not be hiring in the job search that you want, but that does demonstrate that these are the companies that are growing. These are the companies that are investing. These are the companies that they may not have the right job for you at the moment, but they may look at your skill set and your experience. So think about, well, how can I network with them? Go back to your tribe. Think about who can introduce you to people in those companies, because if they're hiring, they may have a need for you and a need for your skill set and experience. And then finally, start thinking about your interview prep. Get yourself ready for that interview. Ask someone for your help. Google it. Ask your local library again for their support, but get yourself ready for an interview. Finally, well, my second final tip, I guess, is it can be very hard to go back into the workplace after a long period of time. And even if you are very confident, your confidence can be knocked as you receive setbacks and as people say things to you that may not help you on your journey. So I strongly believe that you need to fake it until you believe it. So if you can see this image, think of yourself as that cat looking in the mirror. And what do you see? Who is on the other side of that mirror? And start to believe that this is who you are. Once you believe it, it will start to happen. And I believe that solely. And there's a couple of things you can do to start believing it. Catch those negative thoughts that are coming in your head. Catch them and say, is this true? What are the stories you're telling yourself? Start dressing the way that you would if you were going out to work. If you're somebody that doesn't usually wear makeup every day, start thinking about wearing makeup. Start thinking about shaving if you're a man and having a clean haircut. Being ready to step into the person who takes up a new job. Eamon Cuddy is a phenomenal person, and you can find her on YouTube. Cuddy, Cuddy. Google her. She talks about how you stand, how you sit, how you pose, and when you're feeling less confident, that this is what will help you believe in yourself. So think about that as well. How do you walk into a room? How do you walk into those conversations that you're having with those people that you're going to start networking with? And how do you hold yourself? Again, Google Amy Cuddy on YouTube and watch her TED Talk videos. They're inspiring, and they will help you, give you the tools to be confident, and help you believe it until you help you fake it until you really believe it. And if nothing else, think of yourself as this lion in this mirror. You have this. I believe in you. You believe in yourself. You know your why. So start to fake it until you believe it. And then my final tip is, remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So make a plan. I strongly believe that you need to set aside a time every day, or every week, I should say, and agree that time. If you think about, oh, I must go and do some job searching, or I must look at my CV, or I must do this, it will never happen. But if you ring fence a time, whatever that time may be, 3 times a week, an hour, 3 times a week, 2 hours twice a week, an hour every day, and you say you're going to do that, and you don't do anything else, but you sit at a place and you start writing and you start thinking, it will happen. It will happen. And the great thing about doing a job search and getting back into the workplace is that you don't need to do it 9 to 5. You can do it at a time that suits you. So if you're a morning person, do it early in the morning. If you're an evening person, do it in the evening time. But just set a time and ring fence it, and let that become your priority, and let nothing differentiate or get into that way. Tell your friends and family. Start to articulate who this new brand is of yours that you want to go back into the workplace. Because the more people you tell, and the more people that they tell, not only will that raise your networking, it will also elevate yourself and elevate you into a position to be ready to have interviews, to be ready to be having conversations with potential employers. Make it your priority. I strongly believe that, right? Um, this won't happen unless you decide to make it happen. So again, not only setting out that time, but don't allowing other things to come into your space, because there will always be something else that comes in at that time. But make this your priority. If possible, have a dedicated space to do this work. I know that's not always easy, but maybe get into the place of always sitting at the kitchen table at the same time on the same day every week. Start to track your progress. If you're familiar with Excel, use Excel. If not, use a notebook, but write down everything that you do. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Sometimes you're going to have conversations with people that they say, I'm not ready to hire yet, or I'm not available to do this yet, but come back to me in a month's time, come back to me in a 3 months' time. And unless you write it down, you won't remember it. But more importantly, I'm again a strong believer in the 1% rule. If you do 1% every day, they will build, they will grow, and all of a sudden you're up to 365% at the end of the year. So although you may be thinking, all I did today was review my CV, that is phenomenal. Track it down so that when you look back and when you start to think, gosh, this journey is too hard, or no, I can't do this anymore, look back over your progress and see what you've achieved and see how phenomenal you're doing. So track your progress, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's on a Word document, or whether it's just in a notebook, but track down everything that you're doing, and remembering all of those 1% build and build and build until finally you will get the job that you love. And then celebrate those small wins. Celebrate getting started. Celebrate having that networking conversation. Celebrate everything. You, if you don't celebrate it yourself, nobody else will. And that celebration will help build that confidence. That celebration will help remind you that although that this is a marathon and not a sprint, you are making progress. So be proud of yourself. I believe in you. You believe in you. The library believes in you because they have given you these resources through Work Matters. I believe that anyone who puts their mind to something can achieve it. So celebrate those wins and and move forward and find the job that gives you the passion and energy that you deserve after your career break. So these are my 7 strategies to get back into the workplace. Know your why. Don't do it alone. Network. Think about what learning you want to do, you need to do. And even if you're thinking that there is no learning that you need to do, remember that lifetime learning is huge. I'm a strong believer in it. You should always be learning. Identify what you need to prepare to get your job hunting skills, your CV, your interview prep, your LinkedIn. Be confident. Know that you can do this. As I said, I believe in you. You believe in it. You've identified your why. So be confident that this will happen. And build resilience by making a plan and being mindful that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And finally, I'd like to leave you with this quote. I strongly believe that if you can have anything you want if you're willing to give up the belief that you can't have it. So believe that you can have your ideal job. Believe that your job is out there waiting for you. Believe that you have the skills, the strengths, the motivation to do it, and you will find that job. Thank you very much for listening to me today. These are my details, and I strongly urge anyone who is thinking of going back into the workplace after a career to reach out to the local library, to reach out to the Cork County Library and Work Matters, and they can help you as well. Thank you again. All the best. Bye-bye.